I think there's a high possibility that we all feel good. And that's one of the constants that we have, is that there is a constant sensation of goodness that runs through us no matter what. And I hold that to very high importance within myself. I believe that this is one of the most profound, simple miracles that exists within the human being. What exists within that sensation is many things, isn't it? It has an incredible amount of meaning. When we begin to look at it and give it the room that it would need in order to express itself freely, there is an incredible amount of insight that begins to emerge just from that simple sensation. It becomes a guiding force within the development of the individual. And there is a time within every individual's experience that we recognize that fully. And it's within that recognition that things start to really happen. Happen for an individual's personal development externally, but also the personal development internally. There's a storyline to it. There's actually no getting away from the storyline. This is the beauty of the truth. No matter where you look, there's going to be a storyline that you're connected to. So there's no point in attempting to get rid of the story because we can't. So to accept the fact that we are built of stories. Stories from the past, stories of the present, and stories which are reaching into the future. And we are that. We actually reach so far in the past that we've been here since the very beginning. The beginning of it all. In order to really connect to this beginning, we have to realize what we're made up of. And we are in fact made up of single cells. Billions of them, trillions of them. All working together in order to create the experience that we're having right now. And what brought us to this point actually started billions of years ago. 3.4 billion maybe? And it was the drive and the will of that single cell organism that drove us through whatever it is that was the challenge or the hurdle or the period of development that we needed to move through in order to get to this point. And I understand that there's a gap period where we don't really know what happened. And that's when consciousness really took off and emerged. But we can't negate the fact that we actually come from a single cell organism which has learnt a behavior pattern which has led us to this point of our development. And within that drive, we can really honor it. Not just honor it, but use it. Not just use it, but develop with it. Develop with something specific within that single cell expression. And that is the will and the drive to keep evolving, moving things forward. Be within the flow and the stream of life's experiences. So in order to really connect to this understanding, we cannot necessarily invoke an intellectual understanding from it. Because to intellectually understand is then to limit ourselves from the ability to allow the cellular body, as it's been organized, to tell us the story. How? How do we rest into and let go of the attempt to understand, and instead just simply accept the fact that we are developing within our understanding. And in order to develop within this understanding, we need a mentor. We need a teacher. And the teacher that we are invoking is one that's found from the inside. But the influence of the teacher is everywhere. We understand that if we take on any practice of any kind or learn a subject from an individual, the influence of that teacher becomes everywhere. So that which you are made up of has the influence that you are seeking for to get yourself to this next place of your development through the challenge, through the hurdle. And to begin to realize that there's beauty found within this cellular experience. There's a beauty that exists when we just simply allow what we have beyond this sound which we hear from our thinking mind to begin to become this driving force. And it's through your ability to sense, your ability to feel, that we begin to pick up on the intelligence which exists within these trillion cells working together. Now, evolving from this place, this is what we want to begin to cultivate within our meditation practice, the ability to evolve. Understanding that what you see within your mind's eye, that which potentially is the challenge, is not the place that we want to access the through point with. Ideally, we're not going to use that which is challenging the particular thought or emotion to wrestle around and find a solution for our meditation practice. We want to surrender all of it, whatever that thought or emotion is, and allow it just to simply rest. Resting, awaiting the next piece of instruction so that then it can move on. Remember last week that we talked about creating the in point very clearly, but also creating the out point for these thoughts and these feelings. So now, relying on the subtlety of the sensation which is emerging from this place that I'm speaking of, your cellular organization, and trusting that the intelligence which is running through them, invoking the ability to communicate so efficiently to the point where you don't even notice that they're there, is exactly the intelligence that we want for our meditation practice, is exactly the drive that we need in order to dissolve that which is no longer good for us and enhance and support that which is good for us. The avenue in towards this deepening relationship to your cellular body is found within your ability just to simply look at what is the most subtle experience of sensation found from your physical body first. What does that subtlety feel like? What does that subtlety sound like? Taste like? Smell like? Look like? All the senses enveloped within that one point of study. Also realizing that the driving force for the survival of this cellular level of organization within this human experience is driven through your breath. The inhale-exhale is connecting to the sensation that we feel on the inside and invoking and enlivening the baseline sensory system, so that then we can let go of the periphery stimulation. As we let go of this periphery of stimulation, we begin to consolidate the ability that we have innate inside of us. And then begin to direct that ability towards the target. What is this target? It is exactly what you choose it to be. The vehicle that I am suggesting is your will. Your will that is connected to the oldest activity that has made up who you are. Any other conversation that comes up with an opinion we don't need within our meditative experience, because the information which is filling the mind is generally based upon past experience from the place of the psychology. And the psychology is the one that is wishing to become the student within the artistry of meditation. So we must teach this piece of psychology that exists within our mind how to listen to that which is more subtle, but also older than. And it's often the younger generations that need the lesson in how to learn or how to listen. So we want to keep this really close in mind, thinking that we have the elder generation that exists within us and the younger generations that exists within us. And we want to give opportunity to these older aspects that make up who we are, to impart their wisdom. So I'm proposing that we, just tonight, and if you connect to it, then forever, allow the drive that naturally exists within you. And when I say drive, I mean the part that finally wins for you to get out of bed, or the one that bounces you out of bed. This very specific quality found within you that says move your left foot and your leg to walk. That's what I'm talking about. So it's the so well-worn and understood pathways that it becomes second nature, to the point where you do not even think about it. You just simply make the decision. And that's the place where I would love to see us all move towards. This joyous experience of knowing, having the confidence that we already understand. Now we just have to learn how to listen to this understanding. It is less of a mystery than we think it is. It's actually much less of a mystery than we think it is. The stages and steps found within this meditation technique takes this cellular relationship into consideration. We know that cells exist everywhere. In the brain, in the blood, the tissue of the body, everywhere. So we frame the developing meditation in that same light. Developing steps that enable us to see the entire body as one working unit, which is made up of single parts. Individual parts working together. Individual parts working together so seamlessly that we recognize it as being one. You and your psychology is actually a part of that working mechanism. So the opportunity which is arising is gone with the troubles, the challenges of your meditation practice, but also the obstacles or the hurdles that you must move through the day. With the simple realization that we've been doing this for billions of years. But so subtle is the push and drive that we rarely even see it. And instead, we become so incredibly occupied by the shining beauty of our mind and psychology. We want to maintain this incredible shining beauty, but allow the brightness of the light to be seen everywhere. Like a wall of light. I see that, a wall of light, the cellular body. So incredibly strong and powerful. It is on a constant making it, on a constant making it. You know the saying, we don't die, we multiply? I think that directly connects to the ability that exists within you, continuously renewing, realizing that you are continuously renewing yourself. So the stagnation which we rest into and decide to stay there was a decision that was made. Perfect. Now you know. So what is the next decision that you're going to make with this understanding which is developing that you can just lean back into it? You can just let go and work with the pure expression of your will that goes beyond the psychology. Test and measure it within a safe environment, which is your meditative experience. Learn to trust it from that safe place, and then apply conscious experiments throughout the day. Conscious experiments based upon awareness. As your awareness grows and develops, perception begins to shift. As perception shifts, what occurs within the day around you? What occurs within the experience inside of you? And know that each time you are faced with another challenging experience, either from the inside of the psychology or from the world around you, that then now you can just simply exhale and dive into the well of the will. The will to make the perfect decision for you, which is not driven from your psychology, but rather driven from a more primal place. In a lot of sense, a much more trusted place. For the primary fact that we are not so easily trusting of ourselves. So then we take the good-natured advice of everybody else. On varying scales, depending on who you are. But the truth still remains. So to accept it, that maybe one does not trust fully in themselves. Well, who could with all this psychology jargon? The fancy spins that the mind puts onto everything. So what I'm proposing is that we can trust that which is deeper, that which is older, that which has sustained the transformative changes which has occurred on this planet for so very long. And now you have the opportunity to live with these 1 trillion+ cells encased within the skin, within the body. So now you are a safe environment. You are this enclosed loop. And we are ideally, through this recognition and realization, beginning to shift the way that we choose to treat these individual cells that are working so hard together in order to make your life a reality. So to recognize, and recognition is an incredible thing. When we feel recognized, we engage in an elation. We get excited. We begin to trust. We begin to surrender. We begin to let go. And we actually begin to work even harder for ourselves and those around us, because we're getting a loop back that says, good job. We're getting a loop back that says, I see you. We're getting a loop back that says, I'm actually beginning to trust in what you do because you are showing me how it works. And that's what we want to do. That's what we want, ideally, to begin to recognize, is that this living aspect of who you are is incredibly quiet and takes an incredible amount for us, absorbs it, and then engages with a re-expression through that absorption into something which is then usable. And that loop is a continual, with all of the body systems working together in order to create this moment in time, this present moment. How does it feel? It's incredible. Even if you're having the worst day, even if you are absolutely depressed, manic, bipolar, schizophrenic, you still feel the quality of joy within you. It's just for a moment, and then it gets shrouded with whatever other content is going on. So to become content with the fact that you have content, which you're working through, this is great. And the intelligence which is expressed, often we always know, oh yeah, this is where it came from. And even some to the point where, oh yes, this is how I can get out of it. So then it's just the evolutionary steps that one needs to take in order to get to that next stage. And this is exactly how we develop a meditation practice. Using a technique, which is our evolutionary roadmap. We go from the most gross level experiences, the most topical, the most physical, to the most subtle, only to bring the information from the most subtle back into the most physical or gross. And that in itself is now a conscious loop which we've created in order to begin to mix the intelligence which exists within that will, within that drive, within this deepening understanding. Teaching the younger aspects of who we are, which exists within our psychology, how to interact with the older generation, the influencers really, and then gain that insight. And then to use our youth, our technical understanding, our zest for life and excitement, to then outpicture it. And with this outpicturing, we become an incredibly positive influence within our surroundings. Not just positive influence, but creative influence. Not just creative influence, but a driving force towards evolution. So some argue, incredibly smart individuals, philosophers, speakers, teachers, that we as a human species haven't really evolved at all since the beginning of humankind. You guys. And a part of me really does recognize that. We see that, especially within the ancient writings. You look at something that is 5,000 years old, and it's as though someone just wrote it yesterday. It's the same psychology that we're playing out. So what I'm proposing is that the way through to this human evolution is not coming from the developing of our psychology, but the recognition, the recognizing that we are much more than just that mind with that content. But our intelligence surpasses it incredibly. And that through your development, through your meditation, you are opening the door for that possibility to emerge. And then in that, become a part of this movement forward force for yourself. So this external influence that begins to occur is something that's just passive. It's not ideally something that's calculated per se. Because with the calculation, potentially you see the contrived qualities within it. Not someone thinks you're contrived, but you see the contrived quality within it. Because we're trying now. We're trying to do something. We're trying to impress people. We're trying to be so spiritual or so meditative. And it's within that trying, which has been isolated a very long time ago, going back again 5,000 years, that has been a catch for this human development, for this evolution. It catches us and holds us. We feel we have to try harder, try this way, try that way. The trying has already been set. It already is understood. It has actually evolved past trying to the purity of one's own will. We try so good that we can get up out of bed in the morning and put one foot in front of the other. We have that ability already existing within us. So now we just must be able to simply do that without holding, without catching, and just let it be smooth. Allow yourself to be okay. Allow yourself to be happy. Allow yourself to be successful. Allow yourself to just be you. And that's a real thing, right? When we find a place where we can be ourselves, it becomes our home. When we find a second place where we can be ourselves, it becomes our second home. And then we create a path, a loop that goes from safety to safety, so that we can then practice this. Subconsciously, we're looking for that safety, that place where we can simply be ourselves. So this ultimate place of safety is one that is cultivated and developed within you to the point where there is no geographic location which you need. It just simply is. You were born that way. You already are that. You already are that. And some of us had education on that. Others of us didn't. I did not have that education. Coming out of the womb, when I was just barely old enough to understand, someone said, "Psst, Rameen, you're already you. You're already yourself. Don't even worry about it. I didn't get that. But over time, I began to recognize that simple fact. So now every and any other piece that I suggest and agree to is me. I've agreed to that suggestion, and I'm acting on it. Every piece that I receive, which as a suggestion, and I say no to, this is also me. I said no thank you. But this will component is always the same. It is the same. Either the will is going this way or the will is going that way. And we override good intentioned decisions. We override the good decisions sometimes for the bad decisions, and the will doesn't even care. It will still go. No matter what the feelings tell us, even though the feelings are saying, oh, I don't feel like doing this anymore, you can still get up and do it. Imagine. Until the final breath, you will still do it, whatever that it is. To me, this is hallelujah. I really see the value in that simple human function. It's within the simplicity that we find the gains, not necessarily in the complexity. The complexity is where we can dress it up all beautifully and present it in our creative way. But the simplicity is where we find the understanding. 1 + 1 = 3. It's just that simple. Any questions? About anything. How are you, good sir?
Very good, thank you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you too. Wow. Okay.
Something to think about.
Mm-hmm. Free will, right?
Is always there.
Always there.
Mm-hmm.
And choice.
It's free energy, really.
Mm-hmm. True.
Mm-hmm.
What I was trying to get my head wrapped around was what is seeing this evolution and making that choice?
Yes, and that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
This is consciousness itself. This is the human experience. This is the generational connection. So you see it, and then now once you're finished seeing, then you will pass on to a next generation of seeing, and so on and so forth.
Through my son and my...
Through your son, through your neighbor, through your neighbor's kids, through, on a societal level, on a global level, we're passing from one to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all actually seeing and contributing to that seeing,
Mm-hmm.
to that experiencing. That's one part. So this individual human is connected to a consciousness, a universal intelligence that we are still understanding what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Even the most evolved of human beings on the planet, we're still just theorizing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now the meat and potatoes of this question. My thoughts can form my reality.
Yes.
I can choose my thinking that way, correct?
Yes.
I can choose this, I can choose that, and eventually, somehow magically it manifests for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I'm always, for instance, I study faces. I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you an example. And some faces, especially elderly people, have frowns, big frowns and big frowns. And some elderly people have these amazing bright smiles. And I can go talk to either one of them. The one that has the frowns has really storylines of sadness or disappointment or so on and so forth. And the ones of the brightness has a storyline of joy that you speak of and touching with the fun of life and so on and so forth. So somewhere along that line, those individuals, without meditation, without going inside, without psychology, line themselves up with choices along the way, free will.
100%.
Our meditation in the sattvic practice is slowing us down, giving us a perspective now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Where we sit back and we have to implement, and this is the hard part for me,
Mm-hmm.
the free will to make the right choice. What is that right choice? That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
I can't seem to always find the right choice because, like my friend Amber, she has no edges. She can expand everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There are no limits, right? There are no limits.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about it, the limits are contained on us. So do we run to the no, there are no limits, or do we have to baby step towards them, or do we stay within the meditational practice of the sattvic, very center your body, feel your breath, feel the subtleties of the blood and the fluids and so on and so forth. Yes, beautiful, very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for offering those beautiful techniques.
You're very welcome.
And they do support wonderfully. But I want to know, because this physical body is going to die.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you, 100%, this physical body is going to die.
Mm-hmm.
It's changed already. It used to be young and flexible, and now it's a little stiffer, a little older, right? So it's going to change again.
So now tell me in one sentence, what is your question?
Oh, profoundly what the question is? In what? I babbled, didn't I?
In one sentence. Yeah, I like your babbling, but one sentence, just to get clear on it.
How do we make choices between the ancient information that's already there from 5,000 years ago is in ourselves to the new information that's already there? How do we make choices when we sit in our meditation?
We do not need to make a choice. It is naturally happening.
Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. It is already there. You've already decided. You already decided that this is what you want to do. And it's incredible how subtle we are within our facial expressions, within the doing aspect. So you say something to someone and not even know that what you said is going to then start to stimulate the path for you which you want to go in. So you were mentioning earlier that how does this universe work, that then all of a sudden I think about something and then I see it. It's within that mechanism. A part of it is the awe of our universe, but the more practical aspect is actually you just made that happen. You made the choice, and then you position yourself within your environment externally and internally to make it all occur. And then when it happens, you're so elated. We say, wow, that's amazing, but you did that. So the how is just simply making the steps, and all great strides is actually made up of small steps, and oftentimes that's where we get stuck within life, but also within meditation. We read something that says meditation is this, and if we do not achieve that in the first day, then this is not working.
Mm-hmm.
But that goes for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So to understand that, and that's the piece that we want to cultivate, is it has already been
Beautiful.
decided.
I
It's
get
already
that.
in play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. That clarifies it for
You're
me.
very welcome.
Yeah.
Nothing is by chance.
Nothing is by chance.
No.
So my happenstance to end up in this studio in Edmonton is not by chance.
No, that's
All
right.
the sequences from my early childhood led to this very point in time to me to be at this, asking this question and being profoundly moved by what you just said. Nothing is by chance.
Yes. And again, from that mystical, but just simply because you made the choices that got you here.
I did, didn't I?
Yeah, you sure did.
How clever of me to do that.
So very smart. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Bhagavan.
You're very welcome. Thank you. That was a good question. Any other questions?
So when you were talking about like people with schizophrenia or like anxiety or depression or things like that, you were talking about how they have glimpses of happiness or like contentment or things like that within themselves. What I'm wondering is, you also mentioned that it's a lack of trust within yourself, and you kind of have to work with your willpower in order to like regain that trust so you can have confidence in the decisions you're making. But if you have mania and anxiety or depression or like suicidal thoughts, how can you recognize the difference between this artificial sort of thinking that you're having and your actual willpower, and then how do you how do you recognize the difference between them, and then how do you know which one to feed into? Because I feel like maybe people with like anxiety or depression, they make decisions based on their like chemical imbalance, and then they have this non-trust within themselves because negative outcomes come from it.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So, good question. And a large part of the answer is found in going beyond one's own psychology. So when we have something like mania, or even just depression, we know that the psychology is challenged. That's the piece that we're working on healing.
Right.
So we must go to an increasingly more subtle place. So this subtlety that I'm speaking of is actually found within the body and connected to the breath.
So is there other ways, because someone with mania couldn't like sit down and meditate very easily. So are there other ways to practice finding that intuitive sort of decision-making part of yourself?
Yes.
In smaller ways, yeah.
Completely. Through the sensations of the body,
Right,
connected
okay.
to the rhythms of the breath. So what I mean by that is when you inhale and exhale,
Mm-hmm.
we can recognize very quickly what begins to happen. If we take a deep breath in and a full breath out, and a deep breath in and a full breath out, immediately we start to connect to our relaxation.
Right.
We connect to that parasympathetic nervous system and stimulate the endocrine system in a positive, where
Right.
all of these
So
hormones.
breath is like the
one
key.
part. Breath
Yeah.
is the key, because
Yeah.
this is the constant continuity that keeps us alive.
Yeah, and you do it without thinking. So even if you were manic, you are unconsciously breathing anyways.
That's right. So we want to train ourselves,
Yeah.
coach ourselves, how to recognize the qualities within the breath
Yeah.
that stimulate the sensation of the body, that is then conducive for the outcome that we wish to achieve. So understanding that the organization of the body in its ability to present sensation, and then how that sensation then has a direct influence over the mind and its psychology, is really profound.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's, again, that trust bond that, okay, I don't need to listen to the strength of the mind,
Mm-hmm.
but actually the intelligence of the body, and
It's
make
like
that
body language.
strong. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like it's more of like a body language within yourself. Like when your stomach grumbles, you know you're hungry.
That's
so
right.
like by breathing, you can feel that like a deeper inhale feels better. And so, yeah, that makes sense.
And then the prolonged rhythm of deep inhale, exhale then has an
Yeah.
effect.
Okay,
Hmm.
cool. Thanks.
You're very welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
I did have a question. I just didn't know it yet.
Yes.
I actually just wanted to add something to the last one
Please.
too. I've seen quite a few people in like their manic or schizophrenic phases who have had like a really great regimen on medication, and then for them to be like, yeah, I have a daily meditation practice. And I think that it's been awesome to see that. So I just
Mhm.
wanted to share that too.
It's
that
true.
yeah.
And the truth around manic and schizophrenia is that it's actually a gift. Hmm. It's the most incredible thing, because what actually happens is you get an opportunity, they get an opportunity to see a new side to our reality that not very many people actually get a chance to see. And it is recognized in older cultures as being that of the seer. So that individual exists in two worlds, but they have context for it. So they would take that schizophrenic individual that we call and say, wow, this is our new shaman, and take that individual and put them through training, undergo training, so that then they know how to live with this reality that they have an opportunity to experience. And this is oftentimes the challenge, is that the individual has an opening, but then the opening is not received with the context. So then there is schisms that start to emerge within the brain, because people are not recognizing human beings. We're incredibly connected to other human beings, and we need this sounding board. So if we send something out and it comes back as negative or it comes back as fear, when we are expressing, then all of a sudden we register that. But if we are already in an unstable environment, meaning we just don't know where we are at this moment in time, it becomes extra. So think of a child now lost in a neighborhood. They would get so afraid. But if that same lost person was an adult, they wouldn't get so afraid. So this is the individual who has schizophrenia or even manic put into an arena where they just don't know, but they're so innocent within it that they don't have the tools. And that's what things like medication for a period of time, but also awareness and meditation and just development begins to create, is that safety of understanding.
Yeah, I loved seeing it. I have a brief practical question. I came across a lot of snarky people in my day. And at first I was like, oh, like they're having a bad day. And then they said a few more snarky things to me like over the hours. And then there was like 3 or 4 other individuals. I was like, oh, I really don't like this place. Like, I don't like what I'm doing here today. And I was just wondering if at what point, I know you've mentioned like the bubble bunga and like you just bubble up and you have your safe space around you. But at what point, like, should you always be level and just be able to brush all of those comments off? Like when you can't choose who you surround yourself with.
When you cannot choose who you surround yourself with?
Yeah.
Then yes, this is a profound practice of acceptance. But oftentimes we can choose. And it's okay to say no.
What about like people at work?
Same.
You say, see you later.
Well, no, I mean within reason. But yes, if the environment that you are in is not conducive for you, you know even more than I do what stress does to an individual, and then prolonged stress in a workplace isn't actually great for the human being's overall development. So therefore, you can choose. It's just that sometimes we choose not.
Or like, okay, what if you're walking by the like down the street and like 5 people insult you, or and it's just like random attacks of you?
Is this hypothetical?
Yes. I'm just trying to say, like, if a lot of nasty things happen to you in a day, do you just keep brushing it off? And
well, I mean, I have had experience in this field, and it's often a combination. So challenges that happen within an individual's life always have a connection to a source. There's a source that has caused it, and oftentimes the source comes back to the choice which was made by the individual. So was the choice to walk down a street with insulting people? Maybe. Or the choice was somewhere within there. Now, the second piece to that is we have no control over the individuals who are around us. There's nothing that we can do. So therefore, we must be vigilant in our clarity of what our environment needs to look like in order for us to evolve and develop. And the older cultures, again, have really isolated that in the form of ashram or monastery, where you can go away completely and just simply be with yourself, like-minded individuals, and then get very strong in that place, and then emerge. So we can make your home into an ashram. We can fortify you with community that you choose, and that's your like-minded individuals and your ashram. Ideally, your workplace is also that ashram. Ideally, your habitual paths that you take throughout your day is a part of that ashram. And then through the development of yourself, through the practices that you choose to take on, you fortify. You just simply fortify so that then you can see the truth. You can see through the story. So the fact that we don't see through the story is another choice. And sometimes these choices are not based upon conscious decisions. right? We look at the cellular body. I mean, it's doing all kinds of things all the time that we are not necessarily consciously choosing. Do you see what I mean? So it becomes a really great experiment. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
My question is going back to when you were speaking about on the cellular level,
Mm-hmm.
the relief and release that comes with acknowledgement of just like what's going on, even the stuff that we cannot see. My question, I guess, is sort of about illness and how it factors in, and like the loop that you're talking about, the loop of like kind of the in and out. It's very abstract, I guess, but I
like abstract. It's one of my favorite.
I'm trying to kind of
Look at my socks.
very abstract. I guess I'm trying to kind of create an understanding around how sort of those like maybe more subtle illnesses, because I think that
When you say subtle, can you be more direct?
I mean like physical. I guess it's all physical in a way.
The
For
big
me,
ones?
it's personal.
The big ones.
The big ones.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I did.
The one that you did, the one that you overcame.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I guess I'm
Well,
just...
disease, we can look
Yeah.
at disease and illness in a multitude of ways. We can look at it as being influence-based. We can also look at it as being just one of those things that happened. And both are relevant. And with both of those observations, what exists within it is this choice that we must rally around, whether or not the body is able to rejuvenate itself and heal through it or not. So the loop that is then developed is this positivity loop, which is enabling the renewal piece of that cellular activity to become really fast, unless it's something that is the quickening of, and that's the disease, and then you have to. But I've just got really deep there for a second. I want to keep it. But it's within that understanding, not from you consciously, but from you deeper than that. The conscious part is the decisions that we make, the substances that we put inside the body, the thought patterns that are occurring to bolster and enable the body to rejuvenate. And it can, and it does. You prove that it does. I also prove that it does. I had asthma. We're talking bad asthma. And I was supposed to be sucking on inhalers forever. I don't suck on an inhaler ever. Rarely. Maybe once or twice a year, just for fun. But not out of necessity. And that's the big shift. And so now how did that happen? I'll tell you how it happened for me, is that I just increased my pranayama practice on the retention side. I started to really go deep into the retention because I wanted my bronch tubes to get strong and open. And I started to talk to myself, but targeting the language to that which I wish to rejuvenate. And it worked.
I talk to my body too.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think it's about the choice. Like, kind of the choice that you make that you think is the correct one to kind of embark on a healing, rejuvenative, restorative. Like, there's always question for me if I did the right thing, or if I am doing the right thing, or I don't want to do the same loop again. And so it's like, I guess that point where you...
This is the fear and...
Yeah, and then what you're saying
And
about
that's the
kind of
acceptance
you're already
piece.
you, and if you get out of your way...
That's right, it all just goes forward.
But then that illness, the disease of the bodies, I guess, are those come up for a reason. They come up to tell you things. They're kind of the great communicator if the body has no other language.
You're right, and that's on a personal level for an individual, but also on a societal level, on a global level, just on a human level, we're working through things. So
Yeah.
oftentimes it's not an individual's fault that they got sick.
It's okay to be sick.
It's okay to be sick. It's just where we are as a species right now, and this is what we're working through.
Yeah.
And then eventually that will no longer be a thing, and we'll be moving on to the next.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank
This
you.
was good.
So we're getting better and better and better and better and better at healing ourselves as individuals, but ourselves also as a human collective. So good job. Let's sit. As we close our eyes, becoming increasingly more comfortable within the body, let's isolate our meditation tonight to the observation of this will. So this will that says sit up tall. The will that says take an in-breath and an out-breath. The will that is speaking to the softly closing eyes. And within all of that activity, we want to recognize the cellular relationship. Making a very simple decision to observe the will of your being. That sensation which you feel is directly connected to this ancient drive which has been propelling evolution from the beginning. And feel this sensation that is connected to your sitting up, to the softness of your eyes. And realize that the fuel of this sensation is moved or engaged through your inhale and exhale. And the rhythms of your inhale and exhale, they're actually felt within the experiences of your mind, your thoughts and your emotions. This quality of sensation is also connected to your decision making. Feel with each breath how you move through your psychology, resolving, accepting, releasing, being okay with the ample space which exists around that which you see as a thought. Choosing subtlety over the organization of that exact same matter as a thought. It's the same, just different. So be willing to rest into the known unknown space which exists inside of you and all around you. Keeping the eyes closed, bring full deep breaths into the body. Keeping the eyes closed, engage the same will that we've been developing so that then we are not seeing any other, no other qualities of space except for that of the most subtle, just there in front of us. Meaning that this subtle space is not interrupted by any thought, as an absolute for the next 1 minute, without forcing, just simply engage. Now keeping the eyes closed, soften the gaze. And slowly, without rushing, allow the eyes to open. It does not matter what the mind showed you. What matters is that we were able to connect to the sensation and the breathing. That combination, which then over time will influence the psychology in the direction that you so choose. It will, it does, it is. This is fun. I feel good. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste.